The click of the cabin door closing was the loudest sound Julian Vance had ever heard. He stood alone in the cold jet bridge, his first-class ticket, 1A, clutched in his hand. He had just been removed from Global Horizon Airways Flight 112. Why? Because a white couple wanted his seat. He wasn't loud, he wasn't drunk, he was just there. That single act of casual, condescending prejudice, that quiet humiliation in front of an entire plane, was about to set off a chain reaction that no one could have predicted. That flight attendant and her priority passengers just cost the airline $500 million. They just didn't know it yet. The Global Horizon Airways Polaris Lounge at Chicago O'Hare was an oasis of manufactured calm. It smelled of dark roast coffee, expensive leather, and the faint, citrusy tang of cleaning solution. Julian Vance sat in a deep blue armchair by the window, watching the 787's taxi on the tarmac. He wasn't flashy. While other first-class passengers wore designer logos like armor, Julian wore a simple, charcoal grey polo, dark tailored trousers, and a pair of minimalist Oliver Peoples glasses. The only hint of his status was the watch on his wrist, a Patek Philippe Calatrava, a quiet statement of engineering and history. He was 42 years old, the founder and CEO of Vance Meridian Logistics, a company that had revolutionized supply chain management through predictive AI. And he was exhausted. For the last 6 months, his life had been a blur of 18-hour days, endless Zoom calls with engineers in Singapore and legal teams in Frankfurt, and more PowerPoint decks than he cared to remember. The project, codenamed Vanguard, was his masterpiece. It was a $500 million, a 5-year exclusive contract to completely overhaul the global cargo operations for Global Horizon Airways. It was the biggest deal in his company's history, a deal that would elevate Vance Meridian from a successful tech firm to a global powerhouse. He was flying to London tonight, GHA 112, to sign the final papers at their corporate headquarters. A celebration dinner was planned. The CEO of Global Horizon, a man named Richard Thorne, was supposedly flying in from Dubai just to shake his hand. Julian sipped his water, his phone buzzing on the table. It was a text from his CFO. CFO, board is pre-convened. Champagne is on ice. You're clear for signature, Julian. Bring it home. Julian smiled, typing a quick reply. On my way. Tell them to chill it properly. He looked around the lounge. A man in a bright red Make It Great baseball cap was arguing loudly with a bartender about the brand of bourbon. A woman was taking an endless series of selfies, pouting her lips at her phone. It was the usual theatre of travel. Julian had always found airports to be fascinating places, liminal spaces where all of humanity was on display, stripped of context and reduced to a boarding group number. He was a man who preferred observation to participation. He'd built his company by seeing the patterns others missed. He saw the inefficiency in how a crate was loaded, the wasted seconds in a data transfer, the systemic flaws. It was this eye for detail, this ability to remain calm and see the whole board, that had made him a millionaire 100 times over. He checked his boarding pass. Group 1, Seat 1A, the front of the bus. He'd paid full fare, a staggering $11,000 for the round-trip ticket. It was a company expense, but more than that, it was a necessity. He needed to sleep on the flight, to arrive in London fresh and sharp. The signing was at 10:30 a.m. London time, just a few hours after landing. Boarding for Global Horizon Airways Flight 112 to London Heathrow is now beginning with Group 1. The announcement broke his concentration. He gathered his leather briefcase, slipped his phone into his pocket, and stood. He stretched, feeling the familiar tightness in his lower back from sitting too long. As he walked toward the gate, he felt a small, unfamiliar flicker of anxiety. Not about the deal. The deal was done. It was something else, a background hum of unease he couldn't quite place. He dismissed it as fatigue. He was, after all, a man in complete control. He was the CEO. He was in first class. He was moments away from the single greatest triumph of his career. He walked down the jet bridge, turned left, and stepped onto the plane, completely unaware that his life and the future of the airline he was about to partner with was about to be irrevocably changed by the person standing right in front of him. The first-class cabin of the Boeing 787 was a sanctuary of beige tones and muted lighting. Julian found his seat, 1A, a pod seat at the very front of the aircraft, offering maximum privacy. He stowed his briefcase in the overhead bin and settled in. A flight attendant with a bright, professional smile immediately approached him. "Good evening, Mr. Vance. Welcome aboard. Can I get you a pre-departure beverage? We have champagne, orange juice, or water." "Just water, thank you," Julian said with a polite nod. Her name tag read Chloe. She had sharp, blue eyes and a spray-tanned complexion that seemed to crack slightly when she smiled. "Of course," she said, her voice dropping an octave as she turned away. Julian settled in, pulling out his noise-cancelling headphones and a book. He was just about to put the headphones on when he heard a commotion at the entrance to the cabin. "I simply don't understand. This is a complete disaster." A woman's voice, sharp and nasal, cut through the quiet cabin. Julian glanced over. A couple stood in the aisle, gesticulating wildly at a junior flight attendant. They were in their late 50s, dressed in matching cream-colored linen outfits that seemed wholly inappropriate for a Chicago November. The woman, Karen, had a face pulled taut by surgery and a helmet of blonde, heavily sprayed hair. The man, Mark, was flushed red, his expensive-looking travel blazer pulled tight over a considerable stomach. "Karen, calm down," Mark was saying, though he was clearly just as agitated. "Ma'am," he said to the junior FA, "my wife and I are booked in 1A and 1C. These are our tickets." The junior flight attendant, who looked barely out of her teens, was stammering. "Sir, I see that, but our manifest shows those seats." "Well, seat 1A is already occupied." Karen Thompson peered past the flight attendant, and her eyes landed on Julian. Her gaze lingered, sweeping over his casual polo, his dark skin, and then, dismissively, away. She turned back to the flight attendant, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial, venomous whisper that was still loud enough for the first 3 rows to hear. "You've got to be kidding me. You gave our seats away? Probably to some upgrade. Some points flyer. We are Platinum Elite." She said Platinum Elite as if it were a royal title. At that moment, Chloe, the senior flight attendant, bustled over. Her professional smile was back in place, but her eyes were cold. "Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, I'm Chloe, the purser. What seems to be the trouble?" "The trouble," Mark huffed, "is that he jabbed a thick finger in Julian's direction, is in my seat." Julian had not moved. He hadn't spoken. He just watched, his expression neutral. He had seen this play before. It was a tired, old script. Chloe looked at the Thompsons' tickets. "Ah, I see. 1A and 1C. And you, sir?" She turned to Julian, her smile tightening. "May I see your boarding pass?" Julian calmly handed it to her. He didn't use the app. He always preferred a paper copy. It felt more concrete. Chloe looked at his pass. 1A. Then she looked at the Thompsons' passes. 1A. She tapped her handheld device, her brow furrowing. "Well, this is a puzzle. It seems we have a duplicate booking. The system must have glitched." "It's no puzzle," Karen snapped. "We booked these seats 6 months ago. We are the priority. He needs to move." "He," Julian said, his voice quiet but firm, "has a name. It's Julian, and this is my assigned seat." Chloe looked at him, and the last shred of her professional veneer evaporated. Her smile inverted into a look of pure annoyance. She saw his casual clothes, his calm demeanor, and his black face, and she made a calculation. She compared him to the loud, demanding, platinum elite white couple. She made her choice. "Sir," she said to Julian, her voice dripping with artificial politeness, "I understand your confusion, but Mr. and Mrs. Thompson are very high-priority members with us. This is their preferred seat. I'm going to have to move you." Julian shook his head, slowly. "I'm not confused. I'm a full-fare, ticketed first-class passenger in my assigned seat. I have a connecting meeting in London that I cannot be late for. I'm not moving. We have another lovely seat for you in row 4, Chloe pressed, her voice getting a fraction louder. "I'm sure it's lovely," Julian replied, his voice still level. "But this is my seat. 1A. I'd like my water, please." He put his headphones on, a clear signal that, for him, the conversation was over. This was a mistake. To Chloe, this was not a resolution. It was an act of defiance. Karen Thompson gasped. "The nerve! He can't just ignore us. Chloe, are you going to let him get away with this?" Mark Thompson stepped forward, leaning over the console of the seat. He was now directly in Julian's space. "Listen, buddy. I don't know who you think you are, but we paid a lot of money for these seats. Now, are you going to move, or am I going to make you move?" Julian slowly took his headphones off. He looked at Mark, then at Chloe. "Are you going to allow this passenger to threaten me?" Chloe, instead of addressing Mark, focused her fury on Julian. "Sir, you are now creating a disturbance. You are holding up the departure of an international flight. The captain has been notified. I am asking you one last time to move to seat 4B. If you refuse, I will have you removed from this aircraft." The cabin was silent. Everyone was watching. Julian looked at the smirking, triumphant faces of Mark and Karen Thompson. He looked at the hard, determined face of Chloe. He knew, in that instant, that facts didn't matter. His ticket didn't matter. The $11,000 he'd paid didn't matter. The only thing that mattered was the story they had all decided to believe. "I am not moving," Julian said, his voice a quiet statement of fact. "I will not be threatened out of a seat I paid for." "Fine," Chloe snapped. She turned and marched toward the cabin door. "You've been warned." The 10 minutes that followed were the most surreal of Julian Vance's life. The other first-class passengers stared, some with embarrassment, some with open curiosity. The junior flight attendant nervously offered the Thompsons water, which they accepted with the air of victors. "They should have just called security right away," Karen muttered to Mark, loud enough for Julian to hear. "This is what happens when you let anyone into first class. It lowers the standards." Julian sat still. His heart was pounding, but his face remained a mask of calm. He was doing the math. If they removed him, he would miss the flight. If he missed the flight, he would miss the signing. If he missed the signing... He pushed the thought from his mind. This was a simple matter of right and wrong. He would not be bullied. The cabin door opened, and a large man in a Global Horizon supervisor's uniform stepped on board. His name tag read, Bill. He had a thick neck and a buzz cut, and he moved with the aggressive, forward-leaning posture of a man who enjoyed his authority. Chloe was right behind him, her face set in a mask of righteous indignation. "This is him," she said, pointing at Julian. "Sir, this is Bill Davidson, our gate supervisor. He needs you to deplane. Immediately." Bill didn't speak to Julian. He spoke at him. "Sir, I'm told you're refusing a flight attendant's crew instruction. That's a federal offense. You're holding up this entire flight. We've got 300 people trying to get to London. You need to gather your things and come with me. Right now." Julian looked at the man. "Supervisor Davidson, my name is Julian Vance. I'm a ticketed passenger in seat 1A. This flight attendant, Chloe, is attempting to give my seat to these passengers." He gestured to the Thompsons, "who are now threatening me. I have not been disruptive. I have not raised my voice. I am simply refusing to be moved from a seat I purchased." "Sir, there was a duplicate booking," Bill said, his voice flat, clearly reciting a script Chloe had fed him. "Then why am I the one being asked to move and not them? Is it airline policy to default to the passenger who makes the most noise?" "It's policy," Bill said, his face reddening, "to remove passengers who are non-compliant." "Non-compliant with what?" Julian asked. "An arbitrary, discriminatory request?" This was the wrong word to use. Bill's eyes narrowed. "Are you accusing my crew of discrimination? Is that it? You're playing that card?" "I'm not playing any card," Julian said, his anger finally beginning to fray the edges of his calm. "I'm stating that I, the only black passenger in this cabin, am the only one being treated like a criminal. That's it. We're done," Bill snapped. "You just accused my staff of racism. You're a disruptive passenger. Get your things. You're off this flight." "No," Julian said. "I will not." Bill unclipped his radio. "We have a non-compliant passenger, first-class cabin, refusing to deplane. We need port authority now." A collective gasp went through the cabin. This was no longer a seating dispute. It was a security threat. "You're making a catastrophic mistake," Julian said, his voice low. "The only mistake," Bill sneered, "was letting you on board in the first place." Two Chicago police officers appeared at the door. They looked tired and unimpressed. "What's the problem here?" one of them asked. "This passenger is non-compliant, disruptive, and refusing to leave the aircraft. We need him removed," Bill said, puffing out his chest. The police officer looked at Julian. Julian was sitting calmly, his hands resting on his knees. He looked back at Bill, then at the smirking Thompsons. "Sir," the officer said to Julian, his voice weary. "You heard the man. The airline wants you off. You have to come with us." "On what grounds?" Julian asked. "On the grounds that if you don't, we will arrest you for trespassing. Once they revoke your ticket, you're on their property illegally. It's their plane. You have to go." Julian looked at the officer, then at Bill. He saw the cold, triumphant look in Chloe's eyes. He saw Karen Thompson discreetly filming the scene on her phone, a nasty smile on her face. He knew he had lost. If he fought, he would be arrested. He would be the angry black man on the 10 o'clock news. His company, his reputation. It wasn't worth it. Slowly, deliberately, Julian Vance stood up. He reached into the overhead bin and retrieved his leather briefcase. He didn't look at the Thompsons. He didn't look at Bill. He looked directly at Chloe. "You have no idea what you've just done," he said. His voice was not a threat. It was a prophecy. He turned and walked, head held high, out of the first-class cabin. The police officers followed him. As he passed the cockpit, the captain, who had not once emerged, briefly peered out. Their eyes met for a fraction of a second. Julian saw nothing there. No curiosity, no empathy, just annoyance. The annoyance of a man whose flight was now 20 minutes behind schedule. Julian stepped off the plane and into the jet bridge. The door to GHA 112 was sealed behind him with a heavy, final thud. Julian stood in the jet bridge, the sound of the plane's engines whining on the other side of the wall. The two officers stood with him, their expressions carefully neutral. "You need to come with us, sir," the first officer said. They walked him back up the ramp into the bustling terminal. He was acutely aware of the stairs, a black man being escorted by two police officers from the first-class entrance of a London-bound flight. People stopped and pointed. They whispered. He felt a hot, prickling shame that was quickly consumed by a cold, clarifying anger. He was taken not to a police station, but back to the customer service desk for Global Horizon Airways. Bill Davidson, the supervisor, was already there, typing furiously into a terminal. "Here he is," Bill said, not looking up. "His ticket is voided. Non-compliant passenger." "What does that mean?" Julian asked the officer. It means we're done, the officer replied. It's an airline matter now. They're not pressing charges. You're free to go. The officers tipped their hats and disappeared into the crowd. Julian was left alone, standing in front of the desk, a pariah in a polo shirt. So, Julian said to Bill, you've voided my $11,000 ticket. You've humiliated me. And you've done it based on the lies of your flight attendant. What happens now? Bill finally looked up, his eyes devoid of any emotion. What happens now is you can buy a new ticket on a different airline. You are not welcome on Global Horizon. Your actions were reported. You're being placed on our internal no-fly list, pending investigation. You're banning me. Julian was incredulous. I was assaulted, threatened, and I'm being banned. You were non-compliant and disruptive. You accused my staff of racism. That's a serious allegation, and we don't tolerate it. It created a hostile environment. A hostile environment, Julian repeated, the words tasting like ash. Right. He realized he wasn't going to get anywhere with Bill. This man was a brick wall, a petty tyrant enjoying the full extent of his limited power. My luggage, Julian said. It's on that flight. It's on its way to London. You can file a claim with baggage services at Heathrow when it lands, or you can file it online. We'll have it sent to your home address in 3 to 5 business days. 3 to 5 business days. His meeting was in 9 hours. I need to get to London, tonight, Julian said. Bill gave a short, barking laugh. Good luck with that. Last-minute tickets to Heathrow are pricey. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a flight to manage. He turned his back on Julian, dismissing him. Julian stood there for a full minute, the noise of O'Hare fading into a dull roar. He had been outmaneuvered. He had been railroaded. He had been, in the simplest terms, beaten. The Thompsons were at that moment sipping champagne in his seat. Chloe was probably apologizing to them for the unpleasantness. Bill was back at his post, a hero for handling the situation. He walked away from the desk. He found a quiet corner by a darkened gate and sat down. He pulled out his phone. His hands were shaking, not with fear, but with a rage so profound it was almost silent. He opened his email. There it was. Subject, urgent, confirmation for Vanguard signing. 10 AM LHR. He saw the list of attendees. Richard Thorne, CEO, GHA, the entire GHA board, and him. Julian Vance, CEO, Vance Meridian Logistics. He would not be there. He looked at the airline's app. The next flight to London on any airline was in 6 hours, on a rival carrier, and it was oversold. The next available flight after that was a GHA flight in 12 hours, arriving at 3 p.m. tomorrow, well after the meeting. He had one last option. He could call Richard Thorne's personal number. He had it. He could explain the situation. Hi, Richard. Sorry, I'm going to miss the signing. Your staff, you see. They kicked me off the plane because a white couple wanted my seat. He imagined the conversation, the apologies, the disbelief, the profuse corporate damage control. Thorne would offer to send his private jet. He would promise to have Chloe and Bill fired. He would move heaven and earth to get Julian to London. And what would that accomplish? The deal would be signed. The $500 million contract would be his. But Julian would have been forced to beg. He would have been forced to explain himself, to justify his own existence to the very man he was about to do business with. He would have to enter this massive partnership from a position of weakness, as the man who had to be rescued by the CEO. He thought of Chloe's sneer. He thought of Bill's smug dismissal. He thought of Karen Thompson's camera. He closed his email app. He made a call, not to Richard Thorne. Sarah, it's Julian. Get David on the line. Conference us in. Now. Sarah was his chief operating officer. David was his general counsel. Within 10 seconds, they were both on the line. Julian, what's wrong? Sarah asked. You should be in the air." "I'm not," Julian said, his voice flat and cold. "I'm still at O'Hare. I was forcibly removed from the flight." There was a stunned silence. "What?" David, the lawyer, finally said. "On what grounds?" "They called it non-compliance. The real reason is that a platinum elite couple wanted my seat, and the flight attendant didn't like the color of my skin. They voided my ticket and banned me from the airline." "My God," Sarah whispered. "David," Julian continued, "pull the Vanguard contract. Pull it now. I want you to draft a notice of termination. Cite breach of faith, failure of duty of care, and untenable operating conditions. I want it sent to Richard Thorne's office and the entire GHA board within the hour." "Julian," David said, his lawyerly caution kicking in, "that's a $500 million deal. Are you sure you want to do this? This is nuclear. They humiliated me, David. They threatened me. They put their hands on me, metaphorically. They treated me like I was nothing. Do you really think I'm going to turn around and hand them $500 million? Do you think I'm going to trust our entire global infrastructure to a company that operates on high school clique rules and blatant prejudice?" He took a deep breath. "Kill it. Kill the deal. And Sarah, I want you to start drafting a press release. Don't release it. Just have it ready. I want a flight home, and I want you to find out who else is bidding for the GHA cargo contract. I think I need to make some new friends." He hung up. He looked out the window. The lights of GHA 112 were disappearing into the night sky on their way to London. "You have no idea what you've just done," he whispered to the empty gate. It was 3 a.m. in London. Richard Thorne, the CEO of Global Horizon Airways, was asleep in his penthouse apartment overlooking the Thames. He was dreaming of stock prices and new routes to Asia when the shrill, dedicated ringtone of his private line cut through the silence. He fumbled for the phone. "This had better be a fire," he growled into the receiver. "It is, sir," said the voice of his night shift chief of staff, a young, terrified man named Peter. "Sir, we just received a termination notice. It's from Vance Meridian Logistics." Richard sat bolt upright in bed, suddenly wide awake. "What? That's impossible. We're signing in 7 hours. Vance is on a plane. It's a mistake." "It's not a mistake, sir. It's from his general counsel. It's been sent to the entire board. It cites, I'm reading it, a catastrophic failure of service and a fundamental breach of good faith, rendering a partnership untenable. Sir, they're pulling the Vanguard deal." Richard Thorne's blood ran cold. The Vanguard deal wasn't just a deal. It was the deal. It was the centerpiece of his 5-year plan. It was the $500 million injection of efficiency and technology that was going to save his struggling cargo division. He had personally guaranteed it to the board. Losing it would be career-ending. "Get Vance. Get him on the phone. I don't care if he's 30,000 feet over the Atlantic. Route the call to the plane. Wake him up. Find out what this is. It's a shakedown. He wants more money. Find out the number." "That's the problem, sir," Peter stammered. We don't think he's on the plane." "What do you mean you don't think? He's booked in 1A. I checked the manifest myself." "GHA 112 from O'Hare is about 2 hours from landing. We checked the system. His ticket was voided. He was removed from the flight." Richard Thorne went very, very still. "He was what?" "Removed. At the gate. For non-compliance and disruptive behavior." Richard felt the blood drain from his face. A $500 million partner, a CEO, removed from a flagship international flight for being disruptive. This was not a small problem. This was an extinction-level event. "Who?" Richard's voice was a low, dangerous growl. "Who did it? Get me the names of every single employee who interacted with Julian Vance at O'Hare, the purser, the gate agents, the supervisors, everyone. Get me the incident report. I want it in 5 minutes. And get me Vance's personal cell number. I'm calling him. Now." Richard threw off the covers and began pacing, his mind racing. Disruptive. Julian Vance. The man was famous for being the quietest, most analytical CEO in the business. He was a logistics nerd who spoke in data points. The idea of him being disruptive was laughable. His phone buzzed. It was the file. The incident report from Gate Supervisor Bill Davidson. He read it. Passenger, Vance J., was non-compliant with crew instruction regarding a duplicate seating issue. Passenger became aggressive, refused to move, and accused staff, F.A. Chloe Reynolds, of racism, creating a hostile and unsafe environment. Passenger was removed from GHA 112 by Port Authority police. Ticket voided. Passenger banned pending investigation. Accuse them of racism, Richard muttered. He ran a hand through his hair. Oh, God. He dialed Julian's number. It rang once, twice, 3 times, and went to voicemail. Voicemail. "This is Julian Vance. I'm unavailable. Please contact my office." He tried again. Voicemail. He called his legal team. "I don't care what it takes. Get that termination notice rescinded. Tell them it's a misunderstanding. Offer them anything. We offer them a 10% discount on the first year. 50 million, just get them back to the table." At that exact moment, in Chicago, Julian was in an Uber on his way home. His phone lit up. Richard Thorne. He silenced it. It lit up again. Richard Thorne. He silenced it again. His other phone, his personal one, buzzed. It was a text from a friend, a blogger. Friend. "Dude, what is this? Is this you?" Attached was a link to a video, just posted on TikTok and already gaining traction on X, formerly Twitter. The caption read, "Global Horizon Airways kicks black man out of first class for smug white couple." The video was shaky, filmed from a few rows back. It was Karen Thompson's video, but she hadn't filmed what she thought she was filming. The angle was perfect. It didn't just show Julian. It showed Chloe's condescending, angry face. It showed Mark Thompson leaning over the seat, his finger jabbing. You could clearly hear him say, "Listen, buddy, I don't know who you think you are." You could hear Chloe's ultimatum. "If you refuse, I will have you removed." And you could hear Julian, his voice perfectly calm. "Are you going to allow this passenger to threaten me?" Then it showed Chloe's reply. "Sir, you are now creating a disturbance." The video ended as Julian was standing up, the police officers waiting. The final shot was of Mark and Karen Thompson, settling into seats 1A and 1C. Karen looked at the camera, smirked, and gave a little cheers gesture. The video had 50,000 views. As Julian watched, it jumped to 100,000. "Sarah," Julian said, calling his COO again, "that press release. Release it, right now." The press release was simple, professional, and devastating. For immediate release, Vance Meridian Logistics terminates 500-meter partnership with Global Horizon Airways, citing discriminatory practices. Chicago, IL. Vance Meridian Logistics announced today it has terminated its pending $500 million Vanguard contract with Global Horizon Airways. The decision comes after Vance Meridian's CEO, Julian Vance, was improperly and discriminatorily removed from GHA Flight 112. Mr. Vance, a full-fare first-class passenger, was ejected from the aircraft to accommodate other passengers who demanded his seat. This incident has exposed a corporate culture at Global Horizon that is incompatible with Vance Meridian's values of respect, integrity, and equality. We cannot in good conscience partner with an organization that demonstrates such a profound failure of basic human decency. All business with GHA is terminated, effective immediately. In London, Richard Thorne's office was now fully lit. His entire executive team was on a conference call. "Sir," Peter said, his voice trembling, It's public. A press release and a video. Sir, a video of the incident is going viral." Richard Thorne didn't say anything. He just walked to his window and watched the sun begin to rise over London. He knew, with absolute certainty, that his day was already over. His stock, which opened for trading in 3 hours, was about to fall off a cliff. GHA 112 touched down at Heathrow at 9:15 a.m., 30 minutes late. Mark and Karen Thompson were the first off the plane. They were buoyant, energized by their victory. "That was just dreadful," Karen said to Chloe as they departed. "But you handled it beautifully, dear. Some people are just so entitled." "It was my pleasure, Mrs. Thompson," Chloe said, her smile firmly in place. "We appreciate your loyalty to Global Horizon." The Thompsons entered the terminal, expecting to breeze through the fast-track lane for first-class passengers. Instead, they were met by 2 grim-faced men in dark suits and a woman from Global Horizon's executive team. "Mr. and Mrs. Thompson?" the woman asked. Her name was Evelyn. "Yes?" Mark said, annoyed by the delay. "My name is Evelyn Shaw. I'm the Director of UK Operations for Global Horizon. We need you to come with us, please." "Is there a problem?" Karen asked, her smile faltering. "Our bags." "Your bags will be handled. Please. This way." They were not led to immigration. They were led to a sterile, windowless room deep in the terminal, a place usually reserved for deportations or security threats. "What is the meaning of this?" Mark demanded, his voice rising. "We are Platinum Elite members. We've been treated abominably." Evelyn Shaw sat down opposite them. She placed a tablet on the table and pressed play. It was the video. Their video, the one Karen had filmed. It was now playing on loop on every major news network. Karen's face went pale. "This video, which you appear to have taken," Evelyn said, her voice like ice, "now has over 15 million views. It was posted alongside a press release from Vance Meridian Logistics. The man you had removed from 1A, that was Julian Vance, the CIO of Vance Meridian." Mark's bluster vanished. "Who? I don't know who that is." "He was on his way here," Evelyn continued, ignoring him, "to sign a $500 million contract with us, a contract that, as of 3:00 a.m., has been terminated. Citing this incident, our stock is in free fall. It's down 22% in pre-market trading, a loss of nearly $1.2 billion in market value, all because you wanted his seat." Karen Thompson looked like she was going to be sick. We were just... There was a duplicate booking." "Chloe said so," Mark stammered. "There was no duplicate booking," Evelyn said. "We've checked the logs. Your original tickets were for 3A and 3C. You saw Mr. Vance, saw an opportunity, and you lied to the flight crew. You created a confrontation, and our crew failed, spectacularly." Evelyn leaned forward. "So here's what's going to happen. Your Platinum Elite status, it's revoked, permanently. You are both banned, for life, from Global Horizon Airways and all of our partner airlines. We are flagging your passports in the system. But it gets worse." She turned to Mark. "We also did a little research on you, Mr. Thompson. You're a mid-level VP at Ryson Logistics, aren't you?" Mark's jaw went slack. Ryson was a direct, cutthroat competitor to Vance Meridian. "It seems," Evelyn said, a cruel, thin smile on her face, "that Ryson has also been trying to get a piece of our cargo business. Our CEO, Richard Thorne, is on a call right now with your CEO. He's explaining, in vivid detail, how a Ryson employee engaged in what appears to be corporate sabotage, impersonation, and public racial harassment to derail a competitor's deal. I wouldn't expect your keycard to work when you get back to the office." Karen let out a small, strangled sob. "As for your trip to London," Evelyn said, standing up, "it's over. We are rebooking you, at your own expense, on the next flight back to Chicago. In economy, on a budget carrier. Security will escort you to the gate. Get out of my airport." At the same time, back on GHA 112, Chloe was supervising the cabin cleanup, still buzzing from the adrenaline. She felt powerful. She had protected her high-value customers. She had removed a problem. She was, she felt, an excellent purser. The door to the jet bridge opened again. This time it wasn't a passenger. It was Evelyn Shaw, flanked by the two security men. "Chloe Reynolds?" Evelyn asked. "Yes," Chloe said, smiling. "Evelyn, what are you doing here? Hand me your badge and your passport. You're suspended, effective immediately. You are to be escorted to a holding room where you will wait to be interviewed by our legal and HR teams. You will then be flown back to Chicago as a passenger, in a middle seat in the back. Do not speak to any other crew. Do not access any airline systems. Am I clear?" Chloe's face crumbled. "What? But the passenger. He was disruptive. He called me a racist. Supervisor Davidson backed me up." "Supervisor Davidson," Evelyn snapped, "has already been fired. His access was revoked before this plane even landed. You, Chloe, are the star of a 15 million view video that has cost this company over $1 billion. You didn't just remove a passenger. You ejected the single most important business partner we had. You are a liability this company can no longer afford. Now give me your badge." Chloe's hands trembled as she unclipped her name tag. The professional smile was gone, replaced by a mask of sheer, uncomprehending terror. She, too, was escorted off the plane, her career at Global Horizon Airways over in an instant. Richard Thorne hadn't slept in 24 hours. He had flown from London to Chicago on his private jet, a Gulfstream G650, a flight that felt more like a funeral procession than a business trip. His company was in flames. The news cycle was brutal. Global Horizon's billion-dollar bigotry. CIO kicked off flight. The smirk that sank a stock. Karen Thompson's smug cheers gesture was now an international meme, a symbol of corporate arrogance and prejudice. Chloe and Bill's faces were plastered everywhere. Case studies in customer service gone wrong. Mark Thompson had been fired from Rice & Logistics via a very public, very terse press release from his own CEO, who was desperate to distance his company from the scandal. The Thompsons were, in a word, radioactive. But that was just the cleanup. The fire was still burning. The Vanguard contract was still terminated. Richard's car, a black Bentley, pulled up outside a sleek, modern glass tower in Chicago's financial district, the headquarters of Vance Meridian Logistics. He had called Julian's office 42 times. His calls were all routed to the general counsel, David, who politely and repeatedly stated, "Mr. Vance has no further comment. Our termination notice stands." So, Richard was here to beg. He walked into the lobby, a space that was a monument to quiet efficiency. No loud TVs, no frantic shouting, just the sound of keyboards and the smell of, faintly, green tea. "Richard Thorne for Julian Vance," he said to the receptionist. The receptionist didn't look flustered. "Mr. Vance is not taking unannounced meetings, Mr. Thorne." "Please," Richard said, and the word shocked him. He was not a man who begged. "Please just tell him I'm here. Tell him I am not leaving until I speak to him." The receptionist nodded, typed a message, and then looked back up. "He will see you. 40th floor." Richard rode the elevator, his stomach in knots. When the doors opened, he was in a minimalist office with a staggering view of Lake Michigan. Julian Vance was standing by the window, not in his casual polo, but in a razor-sharp, custom-tailored blue suit. He looked every inch the CEO he was. "Julian," Richard said, walking forward, his hand outstretched. "My God, I don't have words." Julian did not take his hand. He simply gestured to a chair. Richard, humbled, sat. Julian remained standing, looking down at him. You don't have words, Julian said. It wasn't a question. That's convenient. What happened to you, Richard said, leaning forward, it's sickening. It's a cancer. It's everything I stand against. Chloe Reynolds and Bill Davidson have been terminated. Their careers are over. The Thompsons have been banned for life. I have personally apologized to the CEO of Ryson, who has also fired Mark Thompson. We are issuing a formal public apology to you personally. We're donating $10 million to the NACP Legal Defense Fund in your name. He paused, taking a breath. Julian, please. This was the act of a few ignorant, terrible employees. This is not my airline. This is not Global Horizon. Don't let this disaster destroy the incredible partnership we were about to build. The Vanguard project. It's too important. Julian listened, his expression unreadable. When Richard was finished, there was a long, heavy silence. You're wrong, Richard, Julian finally said, his voice quiet. Wrong? Wrong about what? You said this is not your airline. You're wrong. It is exactly your airline. Julian walked over to his desk and picked up a tablet. This isn't about Chloe, or Bill, or the Thompsons. They're just the symptom. This is about the system you built. He tapped the screen. This is Chloe Reynolds' employee file, which my team acquired. She's had 14 passenger complaints against her in the last 2 years, 9 of them for rude or dismissive behavior. 4 of those 9 were filed by non-white passengers. Your HR department flagged them as low priority. She also received 2 separate commendations for managing difficult passenger situations. The difficult passengers she managed? They were all like me. He tapped the screen again. This is Bill Davidson. He's been managing the O'Hare Gate for 10 years. He has a known reputation among the ground crew as a problem solver. He's who you call when you want a passenger to disappear with minimal paperwork. He's a bully. Your system didn't just tolerate him, it rewarded him. And then, Julian said, his voice hardening, there's the captain, the one who never left the cockpit, the one who, by federal law, is the ultimate authority on that aircraft. He heard there was a disruptive passenger. Did he come out? Did he assess the situation? Did he speak to me, his full-fare first-class customer? No. He just said, "Get him off. We're late." He's the leader. And he failed. So don't you dare. Julian's voice was now a low, powerful growl. Come in here and tell me this was a few bad apples. This is your orchard, Richard. It's rotten, from the ground crew to the cockpit. Richard was speechless. He knew Julian was right. The deal is dead, Richard, Julian said, turning back to the window. It's not about the money. It's not about an apology. It's about trust. My company's AI is going to run your entire global shipping network. We're going to be responsible for billions in assets. And I am supposed to trust that to a company whose first instinct, when faced with a mild inconvenience, is to eat its own, to turn on a partner, to default to the ugliest, laziest, most prejudiced assumptions. He shook his head. I'm not angry, Richard. I'm disappointed. And I'm done. The Vanguard contract is off the table, permanently. Richard Thorne slumped in his chair. He knew he had lost. He had lost the deal. He had lost the money. He had lost the moral high ground. He had nothing left to bargain with. What now? He whispered. Now, Julian said. You leave. You go back to London and you fix your airline, or you watch it burn. I don't really care which. Richard Thorne, CEO of Global Horizon Airways, stood up. He looked small. He walked out of the office, out of the building, and got back in his car. He had just personally presided over the single most expensive customer service failure in aviation history. The fallout was immediate and total. A week later, Julian Vance was on the front cover of Forbes and the Wall Street Journal. He wasn't portrayed as a victim. He was portrayed as a titan, the man who valued his dignity at $500 million. His company, Vance Meridian, was suddenly the most talked-about logistics firm on the planet. 2 weeks after the incident, Julian announced a new partnership. It was the Vanguard project, but bigger. A $750 million deal. The partner? Transatlantic Airlines, Global Horizon's biggest and most bitter rival. Transatlantic's stock soared. Global Horizon's plummeted another 15%. Richard Thorne's board called an emergency meeting, and he was invited to resign. He was out. His career, built over 30 years, was over in 14 days. The karmic circle, however, wasn't yet closed. Chloe Reynolds found she was unemployable. The video was too famous. No airline would touch her. The purser who cost her airline $1 billion was not a good look on a resume. She ended up selling timeshares over the phone, a job she hated, where she was yelled at daily. Bill Davidson fared worse. He was also blacklisted from the industry. He lost his pension. He sued Global Horizon for wrongful termination, but the video was so damning, the case was thrown out. He was last seen working as a security guard for a strip mall in Indiana. The Thompsons became pariahs. Their country club membership was regrettably revoked. Their friends stopped answering their calls. They were the Karen and Ken who started it all. They put their house on the market and moved to a small gated community in Florida, desperate to escape the infamy of their smirk. Mark, unable to find another high-level job, was forced into early retirement. His reputation in an industry built on relationships shattered forever. And Julian Vance, 3 months later, he was at the Transatlantic Airlines lounge at JFK, preparing to fly to London to oversee the launch of the new Vanguard project. He was in his usual seat, by the window, with his usual water. A young man, a black man in a pilot's uniform, approached him. "Mr. Vance?" the man asked, his voice respectful. "Julian, please," Julian said, looking up. I'm a first officer with this airline. I've been following your story, what you did, standing up to them, and then the way you handled it. You didn't just get mad, you got smart. Sir, you have no idea what that meant to people like me. To all of us in this industry who have to bite our tongues every single day. You showed them that our dignity has a price, a very, very high price." The pilot smiled. "Thank you. Your flight is ready. And, sir, you're in 1A. We've made absolutely sure of it." Julian smiled, a real, warm smile. He picked up his briefcase. "Thank you. I appreciate that." He walked onto the plane, turned left, and settled into his seat. As the flight attendant, one who smiled with her eyes, offered him a pre-departure water, he looked out the window. He wasn't a victim. He wasn't a hashtag. He was just a man who knew his worth. And in the end, that was the only thing that mattered. The $500 million was just karma's processing fee. In the end, it wasn't a story about money. The $500 million deal was just a number. It was a story about value. Chloe, Bill, and the Thompsons looked at Julian Vance and saw a man of no value. They saw someone disposable, someone they could push around to get what they wanted. They were wrong, and their mistake cost them their careers, their reputations, and their company's future. True karma isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just precise. Julian Vance never raised his voice. He never threw a punch, but his actions echoed in the stock market, in the boardroom, and in the unemployment line. He proved that the ultimate power isn't entitlement or a platinum elite card. It's the quiet, unshakable confidence of knowing your own worth and refusing to let anyone else write your price tag. What did you think of the airline's response? Was firing everyone enough? Or was this a problem that ran much deeper? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We tell stories every week about justice, drama, and the karma that follows. If you don't want to miss a single one, make sure to like this video, share it with someone who needs to see it, and most importantly, subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. Thank you for listening.